Welcome back to the Do Better with Debra podcast and part 2 of our discussion with retired Director of Human Resources, educator, and executive coach Maria Elena De Guevara.
Hi, I'm Debra, executive coach, consultant, and founder of Do Better Executive Coaching and Do Better by Design. After years of leading in education and higher ed, often in spaces not built for me, I turned those lessons into work that supports others. On this podcast, we keep it real. I sit down with artists, educators, entrepreneurs, and leaders to talk about legacy, healing, leadership, and the courage it takes to take up space without shrinking. If you're ready to lead with heart, live with intention, and take up space with no apologies, you're in the right place. Follow me for leadership gems, real talk, and reminders that you've got this. So we've talked about where you introduced me to the ACE framework.
Yes.
Can you walk us through what that stands for, how you used it to stay grounded in your values and across your career?
Yes. So the ACE framework is really a lens, if you will, that I have used to evaluate life's challenges. It's an easy concept to remember. And so the A stands for accepted. Okay? So we have to accept reality. And that's hard to do sometimes, to really look at reality and say, this is what's going on. And you have to know your role, right? Do you have control to change anything? Do you have authority in this situation? Because if you don't, then you say, okay, well, this is what is, but I'm not the chick in charge. So can I change any of this? So that's the C of ACE. The C is change it. And if you absolutely have some authority and influence to change, it's your obligation to do that. And even if it's in your small corner of the universe, what can you do to create a change, a positive change? And so whatever influence or authority you have to utilize that. And then if you say, yeah, that ain't working either, then that's E of the ACE, which is X, that you then have to say, what do I need to let go of? And sometimes that means walking away, right? But what it doesn't mean, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, whatever. Oh, don't like that word at all, right? Do not like that word, because it's washing your hands and resigning yourself to the environment. And it's like, no, that's to keep you in the victim mentality. But if you choose, and that's what I love about the ACE framework, that it's about allowing you to with intention, choose how you're going to show up. So I'll give you an example that I had in my life with Accept. So I was in an organization that was, in fact, a toxic organization. It was a toxic organization. I was a manager at the time, not a director or anything. So I have some ability to create change and influence? Absolutely. But it was at a much smaller scale than being a director. But I was going back for my master's because I knew I did want to be a director one day so I could have more scope of authority and influence and really create change. And so in order to do that, I have to go get my master's, right? So with 2 babies under 2, a dog and a mortgage, I go back to school full-time, working full-time. And I was up and down the Bay Area for school, where I lived and where I worked. And so here I know that I'm in a toxic environment. Why am I wanting to go get my master's? I could have looked for another job, maybe closer to home, but it takes a lot of bandwidth to learn a new organization and the norms of the organization and all of that. Why would I do that to myself when I know I'm going to be expending a lot of energy and bandwidth going to school full time with babies and working full time? So I said, okay, then I already know this organization and I already know that it's toxic, but I need to have the energy and time and space so I could focus on my master's. So there's no need to change this. At least I already know what the devil known is better than the devil unknown in this case, right? And I said, because I went to get my master's in human resources and organizational development, all my homework assignments were going to be right here. And so I said, perfect. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. I was able to write my entire thesis on the dysfunction of this organization and the recommendations of how things could change, right? And that's acceptance. It's like, I'm here for a reason. And I know that I can create change in my little world, and I accept it. I can't change all of this, but I'm going to make it work for me. So it's not a whatever attitude. No, I was still doing my thing in the areas where I could change. I did, and accepted what I could not, and wrote about it in my homework.
Because you made it work for you as well,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I love that.
And then, so that was the accept, and then the change. And then the exit was, once I got my degree, I remember saying to my boss at the time, I'm happy to stay here and create change. But if that's not going to happen, I'm going to move on. I've got my degree. That's what I was hoping for. And I'm moving on. And he said, you know what? This place is not ever going to change. You need to move on. You would be wasting your talent here. And so go somewhere else. And it was just what I needed. So I was able to move on, and moving on. As they say, endings are also new beginnings. And that's exactly what it was, because it continued my forward progress in my career.
Love that. And before I let you go, initially I wanted to talk to you about women negotiating their salaries and when we're offered the job. And even when we're in the job and we think that we should get some more money, what's your advice?
On how to negotiate?
Yeah, how to negotiate. Yeah. Negotiating when I first get the job, and I've been in the job for a while, and I want to advocate for a salary increase.
So a big piece of that is do your homework. A lot of us come from just the emotional, like, I deserve more, or I'm doing so much, blah, blah. That's a harder pill to swallow for a manager, because they're automatically going to get defensive. Because in that statement, you're saying, and you are not rewarding me. That's what they hear. So what I say is, it's not about just you. It's about the contributions, your contributions, and the outcome of those contributions, right? So you need to be very clear that you don't just say, well, I know I make, I'm worth more. And that's too vague, and that's very general. So you need to say, here's what I have delivered on in the outcome. So what are the metrics around that? We're talking numbers, and whatever your field may be, what are the deliverables and outcomes that you, for the whole, not just for Maria Elena or for Debra, but for the whole. And then you have to also do your homework, because you should know that unless it's private industry, if it's a public sector organization, there are some parameters, right? Like market, what does the contract say? So you need to know your environment and the tools that are available for your manager. And then you present your case. So you have to present the case of what the deliverables are and what the market may say. But it needs to not be a emotional conversation. It needs to be one based on outcomes. To say, this is what I'm worth for you. And you understand that times are tight. And so you're not asking for this or that, but you're asking for an adjustment because, you know that that's what the market will bear. And again, I've had the conversations of actually saying, if it's not going to happen here, like I did with my boss there in my example earlier, I will want your support when I start looking, because I'm going to want him to write me a letter of reference, right? So you don't want to burn those bridges, but at least you're being honest. And it's not going to be about, it's a negative just because you're interested in more money. It's not a negative if you present your case and show flexibility and understanding of some of the barriers or roadblocks anyway that they may have to manage. Like, well, we're trying to keep it comparable to everyone else. Then you could say, yes, absolutely. However, here's where I can differentiate myself from the others, because I do understand that there's some equity requirements and this and that. So if you can speak their language, now that shows that you're understanding their side, but you're also not going to let go of your interests, right? And that's the key, is you have an interest, they have an interest as well. You being able to speak to their interests allows them to listen more clearly to what your interests are, as opposed to, I want.
It's interesting. While you're speaking, I was having this memory of being a manager while you were the HR director, and I think I wanted to move up a step. Thank you. And I had gained more pieces of my job under my portfolio, so it was growing. So it would indicate that I need to be at the 2 level. And so what I did is my research, because we're part of a system, to see the other directors within the same CSO system with my same title. And I believe I presented that to the vice president. So then he presented to you. And I think that's how I became at the 2 level. So it's interesting that just clicked in my head while you were talking. So
Exactly. But unfortunately, a lot of folks just get emotive about
mhm,
it, you know, and it, because it is personal. It is personal. It's you're feeling, hey, my manager's not paying attention to me, because I think it's sad that the employee has to be the one to come forward. I do.
yeah,
So I'm with you on that, right? And I think that it's the manager, if they know you're taking on all these additional tasks, they have to think about remuneration,
mhm, mhm,
And so it's sad to me when the employee has to be the one to bring it up.
mhm,
And then that's when they get defensive, because they're like,
mhm,
they're somehow saying, I didn't do my job. Yeah, in a way, because you should have, right? And you've put the employee in the position of having to advocate for themselves, as opposed to you being the hero and advocating for your employee,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
It's a very different dynamic, but you should do it anyway, right? That doesn't mean that you should wait around for your manager, but you need your manager to be an advocate for you. So give them the tools so that they can advocate for you. Like you said, you did your homework. That made the job easier for your VP
Mhm,
to then come to me to
mhm,
make a case. So do your homework, but always make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And leaders and executives are not perfect people, and they have busy things on their plate. So don't take it personal that they hate me and they're never going to advocate for me. No, they're just busy. And so when you take it from that perspective, it sort of brings down the emotional upset, so that you can stay in your cortical brain
mhm.
and think it through, as opposed to having the emotions drive that.
You've been amazing. Thank you so much for meeting with me, having this conversation. My last question to you is, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh my God, what would I tell my younger self? Oh my God, it depends at which point, because, oh, Deborah, like I said, a lot of bruises along the road, a lot of bruises. And so I think I would say, I think I did always sort of show up as who I am. I think there were those times where I could see myself if I pull up and look down. Remember, I said at the beginning of our conversation that it wasn't so much the organizational warrior part, when I was getting attacked or whatever. It was really when it was me, personal as a person. And I remember, God, because you're at work and everyone's watching. Right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't crack there, but man, when I got home, I know that my husband would say to me, "They can't touch you now. They can't touch you now."
Yeah.
And so what I would say, I wish I had, I could tell myself to not really let it break me that, because what happens is I listened to your podcast earlier with Lawrence about
Mhm.
the hair, and I thought, oh my God, yes. I got feedback like, why do you wear your hair down? Excuse me? It's my hair. What do you want me to do with it? And personal things like I was told in another setting, we're not used to our VP of HR in stilettos. Who talks like that? They're pumps, high heels,
Mhm.
but you have to use the word stilettos. So that becomes very personal, right? And those daggers go deep. And I remember feeling like why? It's this is who I am, right? I'm very clear that you can see me coming a mile away. You know I'm Latina. You know that I'm a woman. Like you said, I walk with a mission. My hair, I've got a flower in my hair. I'm wearing color. That's who I am. I'm not changing that. Can't change that. I actually won't, because some people do, right? The whole code switching thing, but not on that. And I would tell my younger self that, okay, you can cry about it today, but tomorrow you're back on the horse, which I was, but I was bruised. So I would try to not let those things, the daggers, go in so deep that a bruise is, or a wound is created. Because now I'm here, I'm like, survived all that. There was no need for me to feel so alone in a lot of ways. Because, like I said, I was the only one. So I often felt quite alone. And leadership is a lonely place
Yeah, very
already.
lonely. Yeah. Yeah.
So as a person of color, then there's an additional layer to that,
Mhm.
that can be hard. And so I would say to my younger self, no, honey, don't take it so accept it, feel what you feel right now, but tomorrow you're going to be back on, and let it go, because when we carry it too much, it can mess with you. So feel it. Wasn't very nice, wasn't kind, but you're going to be who you are. And so keep on keeping on. That's what
Thank you for being who you are, because it allowed me to see that it was okay for me to be who I am.
that's so sweet. That's great. If I can do that to you, for you and for other women of color, um, I'm glad I had the career that I had. Bumps and bruises, um, it doesn't matter now, right? Because look at you, you're doing so great. And I know a lot of my support system. There's a lot of women now that all used to work for me and are all now leaders in their own rights. And that right there is everything for me. So
Part
that's
of
it.
your legacy. Part of
Yeah.
your legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, friend. That conversation filled me up. I hope it did the same for you. Maria Elena reminded us that leadership doesn't mean sacrificing who you are, but sometimes when we have to exit, it's necessary, and that there is real power in choosing yourself over institutions, over expectations, over silence. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Or are you still asking for permission? What part of you is ready to come home? What is your body telling you? Thank you, Maria, for modeling what it looks like to lead, to let go and begin again. Until next time, take good care of yourself and do better, not just for others, but for you.
Thank you for listening to the Do Better with Debra podcast and Dr. Debra's very special guest, retired Director of Human Resources, educator, and executive coach, Maria Elena De Guevara. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show, leave a rating or review, and share with a friend or colleague. You can always find Do Better with Debra on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and coming soon to YouTube.